Is there gold in Fort Knox, or are the vaults simply empty? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. Let's get into it.
So I went down to the water and found my fate, because I don't wanna be stuck in the good old days. That's when you say, I swear you ain't seen nothing yet.
The new cross and flag gold bars, exclusively at sdbullion.com. Fort Knox, located in Kentucky, is one of the most secure facilities in the world. Established in 1936, it's famous for housing the United States gold reserves. Currently, it holds over 147 million ounces of gold, which is worth nearly $400 billion. However, there hasn't been a proper audit of the gold since 1953. That's over 70 years without a thorough check. And while the U.S. government insists the gold is still there, many skeptics aren't convinced. Here's a clip of Ron Paul from about 10 years ago in his thoughts on the gold at Fort Knox.
Fort Knox, okay. No, we don't know, and there's a very good chance it's not there or that it's been pledged. I tried hard to get an audit of the Fed as well as the gold, and they're not about to do it. When I was on the Gold Commission in the early 1980s, we had 17 members of the board, and 15 voted against auditing the gold. Now, I suspect the gold is not there. The Germans decided we're just supposed to hold gold for foreign governments. The Germans asked for their gold and they didn't get it. Oh, in 5 or 7 years we might have it for you. But even if you walk into Fort Knox and see the gold, what does that prove? It might be pledged, it might be loaned out. So, no, once again, you cannot believe the government on what they tell you about the gold. That's why gold should be in the hands of the people. So you should be buying gold and holding the gold. The more you have, the merrier it is, and when the time of crisis comes, the better. But no, nobody has that answer. But I think the fact that they refuse to allow an audit means that there's some difficulty there.
Here are a few photos from the most recent visit to the United States Bullion Depository at Fort Knox. This was back in 2017. You've got former Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin apparently holding a gold bar, standing in front of a bunch of gold bars. Although I don't know why the only photos they had were super grainy and in black and white. You can't even tell if those bars behind him are gold or silver or perhaps just a painted wall. It's impossible to tell. Now, he was accompanied by a member of the Senate, Mitch McConnell, who obviously is from Kentucky, so it makes sense he would be visiting the military base in Kentucky called Fort Knox. And he is also holding a gold bar in this photo. Seems to be taken in the same place. And then there's a photo of him writing something on the wall. So what's interesting is that all of these photos are from inside just one of the small vaults in Fort Knox. Apparently they had to break some sort of seal to get into this vault, but they didn't go into any of the other vaults while they were there. So it's possible that the other vaults are empty, or it's also possible that what you're seeing in this vault isn't even real gold bars. After the visit, Steve Mnuchin posted on Twitter, "Thanks to U.S. Mint staff for hosting at Fort Knox United States Bullion Depository, first U.S. Treasury Secretary to visit since John Snyder in 1948. Glad gold is safe." Interesting. Glad gold is safe. While he didn't look at all of the gold, it certainly wasn't an audit of the gold. They didn't test it for purity. They didn't drill any of the bars. It looks like they simply walked into one single vault, picked up one single gold bar, and put it back. I suppose that's good enough for us, right? The gold must be safe. Here is a photo from the second most recent visit to Fort Knox. This was taken in 1974. It is U.S. Mint Director Mary Brooks. Now, it is interesting. There's only been 2 visits, not audits, but visits to Fort Knox in the last 50 years. At least this picture is in color. Now, clearly, this was taken in a different vault than the other photos because she's completely surrounded by gold bars here. But if you look closely, you can see there are some inconsistencies in the color of the gold bars. Now, perhaps these ones have a little bit more copper in them, which is why they're kind of toned a little bit darker than some of the other bars. But, you know, gold isn't supposed to tarnish at all. So if these bars were 24 karat gold, then they should all be the same color. But we know that they're not 24 karat gold. Most of these bars were melted down from the 90% gold coins. So that probably is why we're seeing a variety of gold colors in the different bars. This article talks about the last real audit of Fort Knox. It says, we know that the last somewhat credible examination of Fort Knox's gold was in 1953. Rumors and reports that gold was being bled from Fort Knox to help pay the bills of World War II and the Korean War caused Dwight Eisenhower to reassure America its gold in Fort Knox was still safe. There was no evidence that inspection was a thorough audit. Reports said it was a spot check of only about 6% of the gold, but final reports decided all was in order. So there you have it. Over 70 years ago, they looked at around 6% of the gold and said that everything looks fine. So I'm sure it's probably all still there. Nowadays, the government does a different type of audit at Fort Knox, which I think is way better. Instead of looking at the actual gold, they look at the seals on the vault doors to make sure they haven't been tampered with. And they do such a good job meticulously looking after each one of these audits that I'm sure there's nothing to be worried about. I'm sure all of these audits are in order. They're all accurate, that the seals haven't been broken and then perhaps resealed by someone else later. I'm sure there's nothing to worry about. So there you have it. I think we pretty much discovered that there's concrete evidence that all of the gold is still there in Fort Knox. It was never not there. And the government never lies to us. So if you think the gold is missing from the vaults, then you're just a crazy conspiracy theorist. I mean, it's real, just as real as these pieces of gold that I found in my kid's rock collection. I was actually kind of surprised that he had real gold in this rock collection he's been building over the last few years. So I quickly pulled these out and told him, hey, we need to put this in our vault. We need to make sure that we safely secure this real gold. And he was also surprised. He's like, whoa, I didn't know I had real gold. And so we're starting our own little Fort Knox. These are the first 3 pieces that we're going to put in there. And I'm going to make sure that my son audits that vault every single year. We're going to put a piece of tape over it. And if the tape is ever broken, we're going to know that someone stole our gold. So I think we're going to be able to keep really good track of the audits. He did the first one already, although we seem to have misplaced it. But anyway, enough about me. This video was about Fort Knox and how all the gold is really there. Let me know down below in the comments section what you think about all the evidence, and we'll see you in the next video. Silver Dragons out.